Welcome back to the Road to Great Health podcast, where we discuss natural solutions to today's worst health problems. I'm Dr. Kevin Lenderman from South Louisiana, and I'm joined by my mentor, as always, Dr. Rob DeMartino. Doc, how's it going?
Doing great, my man. How about you?
So I'm excited about today's episode and to let our listeners in on how this show came about. And so I came up across all kinds of new research on the connection between Epstein-Barr virus and autoimmune. And so I was working with Claude AI to get all my research organized, to get my paragraphs in order. And I sent all that to Dr. Rob, and he sent me back a paragraph that was like, yeah, but the framing they're trying to do is still wrong. And he sent me a paragraph on what is actually happening in the connection between Epstein-Barr and autoimmune. And Doc, I've got to read this to you. So I was trying to figure all of this out, and I go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy and paste that paragraph into Claude AI that you had sent back to me on what was really happening. Here's what Claude said. I'm going to read this verbatim.
Okay.
This is absolutely brilliant, and it completely elevates the episode into something far more profound and original. This is a completely different and far more sophisticated model, and one of the most mind-blowing things I have ever heard explained about autoimmune disease. That was the paragraph that you sent me back.
Wow.
So,
Flattered, yeah. Claude. Thank you.
Yeah. Claude has access to the entire internet, and you impressed the hell out of him just by that one paragraph. So I thought that was really fascinating.
It's actually funny. So I was walking through Graves' disease online for an autoimmune, and it's trying to give me the whole, oh, it's a mistake, it went wrong. And I just went through like, well, isn't it just this? And it comes back with, wow, that's like the most cutting edge thing. And like, you're absolutely right. It's not a mistake. This is the thing. And I'm like, so why are you telling everyone it's a mistake?
Yeah.
You knew it, right? You put up the research right after I said it, but it's so funny. But yeah, it's all this information is great, but it is programmed to stay within that centralized medicine model. But that's the whole point of doing these, is to try to make sure we get that as clean as possible.
Yeah. And so 5 minutes before we came on the show, something hit me. Why are we hearing so much now about Epstein-Barr? Because you've been talking about Epstein-Barr since I've known you for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And why are we hearing so much about Epstein-Barr now? So I typed in, is there any vaccines in development for Epstein-Barr? And I got several. Right.
There you go.
Moderna is working on an mRNA vaccine for Epstein-Barr. They're developing one. Fred Hutch Research is developing one. There's like 7 companies developing treatments for Epstein-Barr. So now we're starting to develop all of this research push towards it's Epstein-Barr. Epstein-Barr is the problem. And would you agree that's why we're probably hearing more about this?
Likely. I mean, they always want to try to keep it in the infectious category. And right. To be fair, I mean, to really make this clean, functional medicine tries to keep it in the infectious category as well, because it becomes an acute care model of, we can give you a vaccine, we can give you a pill, an antibiotic or an antiviral to kill an infection, or we can give you natural supplements to kill an infection. And especially in the world of that's a very clean model that most people are very, very used to. But usually when you see who pays for that research, right? All those researches are paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, and they're always a mean to the end, right? They want to make it something that they can have, okay, the research stops here, we can make a product for that, we're ultimately going to do that. Functional medicine falls into that too, but it becomes these half-truths where we don't have the full detail, which we'll get into here today, of why viruses, what the roles they play, what roles did they not play, are they cause, are they effect? But at the end of the day, I hate to make it about that, but it always comes down to the almighty buck. And they like it in the vaccine world too, because they can make a lot of money with no basically recourse, because if somebody gets hurt, you can't do anything about it.
Right. And in your model, it always comes down to the four pillars, because that's what it really does come down to.
Comes
The
down to.
heteroplasmy rates, the redox potentials, all of those things, because that's what determines if you get sick or don't get sick. And for you guys that have missed those shows, if you want to really get into the deep hardcore science about the five big leverage points of health and the four pillars, you can go back to podcast 15 to 22, and Dr. Rob and I got really deep into the science of why some people live long, healthy lives and some people don't. But um, the thing about Epstein Barr is, so up to like 95% of the people have this Epstein Barr virus in their system. Well, then I was looking at some of the research, and it says, almost 100% of MS patients have Epstein Barr, almost 90% of lupus patients, but 95% of the people that have nothing have it. So why does one person that has it get MS and the other person that has it don't get MS? And I think that's where your explanation comes in, right?
Yeah, because there's always a differentiation. So it's really important to talk about the ideologies of cause and effect, right? Because cause is a term now that gets thrown around a lot, right? Like some doctors will tell you, like conventionally, they'll tell you, we don't really know what causes autoimmune disease, right? We don't know what causes MS. Other doctors will say, oh, we know what causes it. And then they'll list a lengthy amount of things. It's heavy metals, or it's viruses, or it's parasites is another huge one right now that you kind of see kind of everywhere as well. And the reality of it is it can't be those things. Do they play a role? Yes. Are they cause? No. Because cause and effect says if this is here as the cause, you will get this effect. So what heavy metal causes this autoimmune disease? Well, it could be a bunch of different ones. Well, that's not how it works, right? That violates the laws of cause and effect, right? What virus does it? Okay, so do you find that virus in everybody? No. Is it statistically significant? No. Okay, so it can't be the cause and effect, because then it would cause it in everybody, like you're saying. So it's not that their virus it doesn't play a role, or the heavy metals are good for you or anything else like that. It's that they play a role, but there's something in between that somebody who has a lot of heavy metals may not get that disease. Well, what makes them lucky? What makes them not be the person to go in to get that? And that's where all the things that we've talked about over the last, those handful of episodes you were talking about, that's what makes them bulletproof, to where somebody will have a low amount of metals in their system and get really sick. And somebody will have a high amount of metals in their system and not get sick at all. Again, that violates the laws of cause and effect. And that's where, when I did all my functional medicine training, and I kept asking these annoying questions to the doctors and the professors who were teaching me, I'm like, well, why? And it always came back to, well, their genetics or lucky. So I'm like, so then it's not really the cause. It's either their genetics or they're lucky. But when you dig out the science, it's none of those things. And that's our goal, is to try to tell you what those things are, so you really know what the cause is. You don't waste time on things that are low leverage, and you really start insulating yourself, because, like we've said, the stuff that gets you healthy is the same stuff that keeps you healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So that a strategy can be applied both ways.
Yeah. So the thing about cause and effect is, every different profession has something they say. Well, it's the cause. And then you go, well, why doesn't everybody get it? Well, it depends. That's not how it works, right?
That's not how it works.
Right. And so what the true cause is your redox potential, your heteroplasmy rates, your apoptosis, and your autophagy. And if those fail, those things will then make you sick. And so you can have heavy metals and have these things strong, and you will be fine. Or you can get a little something and have these things off, and you will get sick, and you won't live as long.
Exactly. And when it comes to the viral stuff, right? So think about what a virus is. A virus is it's either DNA or RNA. So it's some sort of genetic material, right? So RNA is the proteins that become your DNA. So it's some sort of your genetic material that gets wrapped typically in a protein coat. Sometimes it's a fatty coat, but it's typically a protein coat. But it can't live outside of your cell structures, right? So it can't live on its own. So it's always trying to basically, like a parasite, dig inside a cell so that it can get into the genetic process and work. So there's a lot of conversations about this as, hey, this is the cause. But even just that explanation right there leaves a lot of room for interpretation, right? Because they were saying that, during COVID times, in a sneeze, there was hundreds of thousands of particles of COVID virus, right? But 2 seconds ago, we just told somebody that it can't live outside the cell. So how is there that much in your nose where you're expelling it from your system? You're not expelling cells, you're expelling viral particles. Right. So then that gets into the system, and then it's got to get into your cell structures. And then it's going to damage your cell structures and do all these weird things. Look, where viruses come from is probably a topic for another time. But at the end of the day, if you have these viruses that are in your system, right, your immune system keeps them at bay, right? In the most simplistic terms, right? Somebody gets chickenpox as a kid, right? That virus is always in their system. If their immune system is good and strong, they don't get shingles later on in life. But if their immune system gets weak, you get shingles. It's just a different variation of the virus. It's a virus, the same virus, but now your immune system can't keep it at bay anymore. So it really always, again, it's not luck. It's what is your immune system doing?
Yeah.
Right. So again, we get back into this thing of, oh, my immune system's healthy. Well, yeah, but is your immune system strong enough to fight these things off? Because we're mostly made up of bacteria. Now, if we damage our cells, right? So that's what the concept of redox is, what protects you. Heteroplasmy is the damage that your cells will take. If your cells take damage, right, on a mitochondrial level, they send out a signal into the blood that's what they call DAMPs, right? Which it means a damage, right? We're taking damage. Your immune system sees that signal and it runs to it like a beacon. And then your immune system dumps out all these inflammatory chemicals, which is what all of the drugs for autoimmune diseases are designed to stop. And those inflammatory markers are designed to either repair that cell or replace that cell. Right? Essentially, that's what they're doing. So, right. So when we're taking medications, we're just trying to stop your immune system from reacting to the damage. Now, if that damage gets severe enough, the cell will literally break. And if it breaks, well, the mitochondria will leak out or the genetic material will leak out. Right. Well, if mitochondria leak out, they're bacterial, right? Mitochondria evolved billions of years ago from bacteria. So if they leak into your system and outside of the cell, which is not where they're supposed to be, and they go into your blood and they're bacterial in origin, your immune system's going to think that's a bacterial infection and I'm going to attack it, right? It's my job. I'm going to do my job. If you leak out genetic material, if you damage the mitochondrial DNA and you leak that out into the thing, immune system says, that's a virus. It's genetic material. That's a virus, and we're going to attack that. And then all of a sudden now your immune system's got its attention over here, and maybe some virus that's in your system that's been in there for a while that you could keep at bay, now all of a sudden that gets a little opportunistic, and then it acts like a what? Like a parasite, right? Because it can't survive on its own. So now you see all these people recommending parasite cleanses and everything is parasites, and they always find parasites in the brains of all these MS patients. So that obviously has to be the cause. No, that's where all of this miscommunication and misinformation comes from, because we're missing the core factor. If you damage these cells and you leak all this material out, your body will react to it like it's an infection. And you could do all this stuff to try to clean up infections. But guess what? If you never stop what's damaging that cell and you keep leaking all this stuff into your blood, you're the source of the infection. Yeah. Right? You're the source of the infection. It's coming from your cellular structures, your bacterial structures. It is the source of the infection is you, not from the outside. Because realistically, think of it logically. If it was the Epstein-Barr virus and we could give somebody antivirals and cure all these diseases, right? Because no one's constantly sneezing Epstein-Barr virus in their face, right? You get it once and then that's the end of it. You kill it off and it would be gone. But that's not it. It's the constancy of these cell damages that we're still taking that keeps leaking this material that your immune system is always going to react to, which is why the core premise of autoimmune is you have to solve the problem. Your immune system is not making a mistake. It's reacting to the damage. if you can identify what the damage is and why someone's taking it, which is basically what we spend all of our days doing, you and I,
Yeah.
right? What's the damage? Where is it damaged? Why is it doing that? Right? That's the nuance. If you have these diagnoses, you have that. I can tell you that. I have to figure out why and how.
Mhm.
If you can prepare that, then your immune system stops. But we have to stop getting out of this idea of this is outside in stuff, right? Like, oh, you're getting these infections. No, your cells are damaging and your immune system will react to that like it's an infection.
Yeah, it's so much the medical American medical frame of mind of it's that thing over there, we have to kill it. Or it's that tree making me sick. It's that virus. It's all of these things outside of our body. And meanwhile, we're doing so many things to destroy the inside of our body that if we would just look inward instead of outward and really look at the science behind this, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, really.
Yeah, and the funniest part about it is like you experienced, and I experience it all the time when we start asking for like scientific literatures. I'm trying to find research articles to validate all these things and connect dots. It's all out there, right? Like it knew it. Like Claude's like, oh wow, that's right. That's and here's the research to go with it too. But it doesn't tell you that. It
Yeah.
tells you the standard nonsense thing that everybody else is repeating. And then if you prove to it that you know it, then it's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Right.
And I know AIs are kind of designed to blow smoke a little bit, right? That they're designed to like kind of get you off, like tell you what you want to hear and get you off. But it's really so funny. And I used the grave example earlier that it's trying to tell me, hey, look, this is just your immune system making a mistake. And I'm like, well, isn't it just reacting to that? Oh yeah, no, you're right. And that's brilliant.
Right.
So you knew
Thank
it.
you.
Why did you lie to me? just tell me
Yeah.
that. But it's not. They're programmed to stay within that box. But that box is not cause, right?
Right.
And a lot of it, chunk of it too, is because it breaks the model, right? There's no medication for that. There's no vaccine for that. There's no supplement for that, right? These are not chemical processes. These are processes of physics. This is process of energy transfer. This is magnetics. This is water chemistry. These are all physics concepts. And as long as we still play this game, whether it's medical or functional medicine, as biochemistry is the ruler of better health, we're going to end up stuck with these diseases and then give this idea of there's no cause, or we're giving all these other ideas of causes that break all the laws of cause and effect.
Yeah, and this is something we see in our practices. We really prove this fact every single day. When we take a patient and start to fix the way their cellular function is working, and they get over these diseases, whether they still show positive for Epstein-Barr or not, or whether they still show positive for other viruses or not. We can still get patients over these things. And so we really prove every day that this is the way it really works in the body.
And all the science proves it too, right? Like I like going toe to toe, right? Because I don't like it because who needs all that confrontation? But at the same time, I'm like, just look at what the science says. Science will back all this. It's illogical to think that 95% of the population has Epstein-Barr, but then 99% of it, that 4% is what makes somebody sick, right? It's an unreasonable thing. And every time I think I have this great idea, and I'm like, wow, I wonder if anyone's ever drawn that connection. And I go in and I look it up. There's like 100 research articles that already drew that connection, right? Just nobody talks about them because they don't fit the conventional idea of the model. And obviously, COVID as a viral issue, if we call it that, was definitely something that came out with this because, and I fought with AI about this as well because they were like, no, COVID was COVID vaccines were great. COVID was fine. COVID was a bad thing, and the vaccines were great. And my concept was, well, COVID, the spike protein, fried the inner mitochondrial membrane. So it basically fries the wiring of your mitochondria. And it says, no, there's no research to prove that. So then I put in a bunch of research that proved that, right? So 50% of the people, almost 48% of the people who got long COVID got antibodies against their mitochondrial wiring because the spike protein destroyed that wiring and it's damaged. And the antibody is saying, I need to fix this. And then, of course, it says, well, you're right. But then what happens? Because you fry the mitochondria and because it sends out damage signals and because that cell can rupture and leak, your immune system gets overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden we got those cytokine storms that would create all the problems that were fatal in COVID. But then you saw all the Epstein-Barr reactivating everybody. All of a sudden now COVID was notorious for reactivating all these other viruses that were latent in somebody's system.
Right.
And you're sitting there and again, it doesn't, viruses don't just kickstart other viruses, but it damages cells that distract the immune system, and then bad things will take advantage. But that's the parasite connection. So I can't tell you, every time I do content like it's parasite, just do parasite cleanses, just do parasite cleanses.
I get that too.
Cool. Just do it. And then come back to me and tell me if it's gone.
Right.
Right. It's easy to say it's just parasites. It's easy to say it's just your gut. It's easy to say it's just viruses. That is the easy thing. Complex diseases are called complex diseases because they are complex.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get those same comments. Oh, just fix the gut, or, oh, it's just do a parasite cleanse. And man, our job would be a lot easier if it was just do whatever. You know,
I could literally just stay home.
Really, yeah. Yeah. We could call it in. You really have to dig deep into the cellular biology of where the cell is broken and why it's broken and how to get it fixed if you're really going to get to the core issues. And, you know, Doc, the thing that disappoints me the most is that patients, even the ones that come to us, they still don't get it to that level. You know, nobody really fully understands the scientific depth of what we are trying to do for them. And even, you know, even that come to the class and they listen to all the videos, they still don't really understand the scientific level of what we're trying to achieve here. And I think it's just because we are ingrained so much with that medical frame of mind of I have A, I need to do B, and I'm going to take C, and it's going to fix D. And it's so much more nuanced than that, and it's so much more complicated than that. But you know, we are ingrained with that from the time we're born. I mean, little bitty babies. Oh, take this, it'll make you feel better. Oh, you have a fever, take this, it'll make you feel better. So that happens all the way through our entire life. So, you know, the general American public is almost like brainwashed with this American medical idea of it's bad to feel bad and it's good to feel good. And if I feel bad, I need to take something to feel good.
Oh yeah, no, it's 100%, and brainwashing is probably the right term. And I guess the side of it too is, right, like most people, if they went to some level of school, right, elementary school, right. I remember my 7th grade teacher yelling like the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, and he would bang on the desk, and it was very impressionable, right? So I was like, okay, you remember that, but that's about it. Right. That's about all we know about it. It's about all we hear of it. I mean, even when we went to higher level graduate schools and stuff like that, I mean, there's like a course on it. It's only a part of the course is talking about that. And these are the things that really matter. And they run our whole system, right? There's no system in your body that does not require our mitochondria to not transform energy that we can use. Right. So if your brain doesn't think well, your brain's not making enough energy, right? Or your body's not making enough energy. It always comes back down to that. And we don't really focus on that. We're not really taught that in school. And again, a lot of it is because there is no methodology for it. So the difficulty of it becomes, you know, I always use the analogy of like, it's like when I go to my tax accountant. I don't care about tax law. Like I could care less, right? I don't want to know it. That's why I hired him, because he's really smart and he knows it all. He's really excited about it too. Like he's like, he gets all excited. He wants to explain to me. I'm like, stop. I'm like, is this legal? How much do I owe? Where do I sign? Right? Those are my 3 questions. Right? Like yeah. I don't want to know all the details. But if you get audited, then you got to start knowing. Right? So I think if your health is your most powerful thing, right? It's your most prized commodity, right? The old expression of you could have a million problems until you have a health problem, then you have one problem.
Right.
Right? I actually looked this up the other day. 66.6% of the bankruptcies in the United States happen because of healthcare costs. Right? So that's more than 2/3. It used to be 60% a few years ago. It's now more than 2/3 of people go bankrupt and lose all their money because of recurring healthcare costs. And I think that recurring word's important because they never get it fixed. Right? I joke all the time. My job is to obsolete myself in your world. My job is to fix you, help you get fixed, really, because I don't fix anything. I just help get you caught up and then teach you what to do to stay well. And then I'm a safety net in case you want to bounce ideas off me. But my job
Yeah.
is not to treat you forever. Now, if you want to get to that point, yeah, there is a certain level of understanding. I know people kind of get scared about science stuff, and you don't have to get to the level that Dr. Kevin and I go to, but at a certain point, the fundamentals of these things, I always laugh when I sit with patients and like, how do I explain this to somebody? Like, I really want to explain this. I really want to explain this pretty well. And you go to the basic, and they do usually a pretty good job. But I mean, the level of complexity that the human body goes through, and the level of complexity that of the stuff that we're talking about, it's never going to be just do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, right? It doesn't have to be incredibly complicated because a lot of the times the things are fairly simplistic. Now, we can speed that up by using different healing modalities and ideologies like that. I mean, that I think is really powerful. The ability to stimulate the body to heal is a really powerful ideology because, again, now you take a process that might take 7 years for somebody to fix naturally and they fix it in 7 months. 7 months is not short, but it's still like a lot shorter than 7 years.
Right.
And you take a lot of the guesswork out of it. So our job is to try to make it simple. But part of the ideology of these podcasts was there are people who really want to know. They really want to know those deep level things. And I think that's great. I mean, I think it's important for us to know important things about our lives and our bodies and our health. And this is definitely one of them, which is, again, why we take these times in between. But this virus thing, this parasite thing, this outside infectious thing. Look, if you have 37 trillion cells inside of your body, you have 10 times more bacteria than that inside of your body. To think that one rogue bacteria from the outside got into your body and is going to kill you, again, is illogical.
Right.
So
very interesting.
My soapbox.
Yeah.
My soapbox on my soapbox on
that's
all
good,
that.
man. Yeah. So So we have so many more other things going in our body, and we're fine with it as long as we keep our core health pillars intact. And I tell you guys once again, if you haven't watched those podcasts, go back and watch 15 on. We talk about apoptosis, autophagy, redox rates, and heteroplasmy, and whether you have Epstein-Barr virus in your body or not. If you get those things right, you will live a long, healthier life, and you don't necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up with full-blown MS or one of these other autoimmune diseases that they're now, saying it's all Epstein-Barr.
Yeah, I saw one other major influencer the other day talking about that all autoimmune diseases are herpes viruses. So it's not Epstein-Barr, it's herpes this time. And it's just where it is in your body is what autoimmune disease that you get. And, so we made content about, I'm trying to pump out as much content at this point as I can, written content, video content, just as I can, because I get so frustrated about like the anti-science of all of this, right? And of course, it's hard because we're sitting on a more natural ideology, right? Like, I don't believe that a pharmaceutical drug is going to ever cure any of this sorts of stuff. And so far they've proven me right. But, and if they come up with one tomorrow that'll cure it with no side effects, I'll sign my name on the bottom and say you should do that. But I'm not holding my breath on that. But, we're pumping out all this content because there's so much noise. There's so much noise out there right now. And you get in the comments too, where they say, well, what about this? What about that? I'm like, that's just noise. That is not first order principle thinking, right? That does not apply to all people in all places at all times, right? I put out a content about sunlight and people say, well, I have lupus. I can't get sun. No, you can. You just can't start with UV, right? Like you're not going to be able to start with UV. Now, the interesting part of that is if you did have a lot of UV before that, you protect against the inflammatory chemicals that make you sensitive to sun, right? So, but there's a way to do this, right? Because there is no life on Earth without sun, right? So these are first order principles. Like there's nobody walking around that doesn't breathe oxygen. Maybe there is. I don't know if they're out there, the lizard people or whatever you read on the weird stuff you read on the internet, right? But right, I mean, these are first order principles. They respond to all of us. This is how our bodies are governed to work. So when people ask me like, well, would this work for me? I don't know. Do you have mitochondria that generate energy that powers your body? Everybody else does. That's a human condition. So yeah, it'll work because that's where this is coming from, right? So if you know what's wrong, like you have a diagnosis, That's great. But then you have to get to the why is this happening? Why are your cells able to be hurt? Right? Because they're hurt if you have that diagnosis. Why are they able to be hurt? And then how do you fix it? How do you put in that so that they're not able to be hurt? How do you fix that where they are hurt? And how do you build in safety nets so that it can never get hurt again? If you do those three things, it is the absolute pathway out. Now, again, that's a real simple explanation of incredibly complicated science, but it really boils down to just those same ideas.
Awesome. Well, man, what a place to leave it, Doc. That was fantastic. So if you guys are interested in knowing more about this, go back and watch our previous podcast, check out our website, watch Dr. Rob's content. The man has forgotten more about the way the cells and body works than most people will ever know. And so go back and watch his content. Doc, man, another good one. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Enjoy it as always.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time.